We on?
Yep.
Okay. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Quantum Catechesis. I'm Father Joe Krupp, and you're not, and I wasn't sure if we were on. But I'm sitting here in my new cassock, and I have never wore a more comfortable cassock in my life, and I'm so happy I could just die. Not literally. Although I could die. I mean, I could die anytime. I could get, like, right now a nuclear bomb could fall on us.
Do we notice that every Wednesday we have to talk about your death?
Yeah, I'm kind of excited about it. I'd like to be there for it when it happens, you know. Anyway, we're going to have a great week this week. Now, we got a big topic today. We're going to talk about priestesses in the church, because you may have heard there's a woman claiming that she's going to be an ordained Roman Catholic priest at some point soon. I don't know. And so I thought maybe this is the time to talk about it. And I hope I can do it in one show, but like the more I worked on it, the more I doubt it. So we'll see. But in the meantime, tomorrow, Rich Budd is coming here. And if you're like, who's Rich Budd? He's only one of the best people in the world. He works for the diocese in our office of like stuff and things. And he's going to talk to us about stuff and things.
Family.
Marriage and family. Two things I'm an expert on.
I didn't think about that until
Yeah.
now.
People are always like, Father, you should tell married couples. I shouldn't tell married couples crap.
Oh, they're already seeing the fancy details on the sleeves. And
Well, you know, kids, you'd never understand the burden. Isn't this thing cool? Can you guys believe this? No, I don't have my collar on. Ask me why.
why?
I was so excited nancing around in this thing. I just got it like 25 minutes ago. And I didn't go get my collar. I just put it on. And I'm like, this is the best. Like, look, I can do this in this cassock. And I don't even know how to do that. I didn't before I had the cassock. But because time is short, I think I should go ahead and just get right after this, because it's a pretty big issue, I think. And what I want to do is, of course, because it's me and I'm neurotic. Can they see my candle, by the way? I have a scented candle from Kalamazoo. It is balsam and cedar. Because this smells a little musty sometimes. Someone opened this door. I had the door shut. And who was it? One of my sisters walked in and was like, "You have mold." And I'm like, I started checking behind my ears. But she meant the room.
No, but I will say what they can see.
Yeah.
Up in the very tippy corner of the view.
Yeah.
You can see the Grand Blanc baseball hat.
Well, good.
Because, can we mention?
What,
Grand
you mean the
Blanc-
state champion Grand Blanc baseball team?
It is, but right now, Grand Blanc football is like 8 or 9-0.
I know, isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Yeah. Basically, since I got here, same thing happened at MSU. Look at football. When did I get there? 08. When did I leave? 17. Think about it. It's all me. So anyway, why are you taking pictures of me? You're freaking me out now. Do I look silly? You can tell
Do you
me.
want me to tell you why?
Yes, I must know.
Okay, I know I don't have time for this, but I think it would be a riot
Yeah.
if I posted some TikToks of my work behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Which would really be about you. But
Well,
I think it
you
would
know.
be funny.
You know, Carrie, when you get to be a megastar. Do you know? Okay, so what we're going to talk about today. So what's going on? Why doesn't the church ordain women? And we're going to look at this today. Now, if you're already of the mindset that it's because the church is sexist and hates women, I can't help you. I really can't. And if you are a person who is really happy the church doesn't ordain women, this isn't for you either. This is just us looking at what I hope you'll see is a very consistent, reasonable teaching. And the fact that we struggle with it is often just because it offends our sense of justice. Now, what I'm learning more and more, and I think I harp on this, but I do think it's really important, is this phenomenon, okay? Where a woman will say, well, women should be priests because they have no voice in the church. The women have no power in the church. And I want to be really clear, I totally agree with you that women have no voice and no power in the church unless we men deign to grant it unto you. Do you like that, Kara? Yeah. But here's the thing. I agree with you. But priesthood is not the place for that. Now, here's the problem. Many of the same priests who say to you, this isn't about power, are about power. Yeah? That the failure of the understanding of what priesthood is and the way it got all muddled in with, I don't know, dictatorship, is the reason that so many of our sisters and brothers struggle with the fact that we don't ordain women. We have made it about power. And because it's about power, and because we've made it that way, then I don't know if we really have the right to complain when other people see it that way. Does this make sense? Tell me the truth, Kara. Okay. That if I do priesthood right, I believe I am a servant. If I do priesthood easy, then I'm a dictator who calls himself a servant. And again, I know I harp on this, but it's important to, because here's the thing. It's not just that I recognize that power is corrosive to my soul, and we just talked about this, remember? It's that God's people tend to want me to be a dictator, but a dictator under their control. Okay? So the same people who will say, well, the priest needs to be a servant, do want me to be a dictator when it matches up with their agenda. Is this making sense? Someone just said this to me, Father, I'm not in this church to answer to a committee. Well, then you're in the wrong church. If you just answer to me, what am I doing? What am I doing? So I want to be clear and acknowledge, for those of us who say, well, where's the voice of the women in the church? I don't know, and that's what kills me. And the fact that many people interpret the priesthood as an office of power is a failure on the priest's part. You're right, but we've got to fix the priesthood, not change who gets in, and keep this power model going. So I hope that makes sense. And I want to be clear. I follow and believe 100%, and I embrace the church's teaching on why only men can be priests. Okay? And with that, the first thing, I got to tell you, where did I get this from? A few things. Dr. Hildebrand, Dr. Peter Kraft, and C.S. Lewis. Those were my three primary sources as to while we go through this. And I can't remember. I think it's Dr. Alice Hildebrand. I can't remember her first name, but I think it's her. And I'm going to be quoting a lot in this talk, and probably mostly Kraft. Why? Because Dr. Kraft distilled Lewis and Hildebrand into a talk that I found super helpful. I didn't find the talk helpful to listen to for a weird reason. There was, to me, an overfixation by Dr. Kraft on feminism. I think there's third wave feminism, which I see as problematic, but I think the idea of women working to receive or maintain equal rights is a good thing. And I think the fact that it got all mixed into abortion is a tragedy. But anyway, and I'm going on and on. So let's take a look. What we're going to do first is start with why the church won't ordain women in terms of authority. And then second, we'll look at why we think God doesn't want women priests. Does that make sense? Okay.
Is it possible that it's Alice von Hildebrand?
Yeah. In fact, I'm 90% sure that's her.
Okay.
Dr. Alice von Hildebrand. Okay. So the first reason that Kraft looks at is, he says, reasons of authority. Okay. Why doesn't the church ordain women? He would tell you this. The church would say, because the church didn't invent the priesthood, she received it. That's very important, okay? If the church invented priesthood, then the church can fix it, adapt it, whatever way. But what we believe is we received the priesthood. Now, I can do a super long thing here, and I'm not gonna, okay? And you may even remember, we covered this a bit, that the priestly spirit was passed from Noah's son to Abraham, from Abraham to Isaac, from Isaac to Jacob, from Jacob to Levi. Okay, that Levitical priesthood, that spirit of the priesthood, was passed from the beginning to the present day. Okay? And that it was received, not created. The priesthood that preceded this, we call it, I'm just going to say the sacramental priesthood, right? The priesthood that preceded it, you may remember from the Bible, is the Levitical priesthood. Okay, and why do we call it the Levitical priesthood? Because only boys born in the tribe of Levi could be that. There were 12 tribes, but only Levi. And it's not like Levi was better than the others, right? That there is a process, a kind of thing of discrimination already. That, nope, only those cats. Well, I was born in Benjamin tribe, or Judah, or what's his butt that starts with an A? Any of these cats, any of these 12 tribes, nope, sorry. You can't be a priest unless you're from the tribe of Levi, right? If you're in the tribe of Levi, you can be a priest or you can make jeans. That's it. Get it?
I do.
Okay, but you didn't laugh, and I'll be honest, I think it's kind of funny. Now, these were male only, the Levite priesthood, and you might think, well, of course, they were all sexist back then. Oh, no. This was the only religion I can find where there weren't women priests. There was no prejudice against women priests. That was the norm. This is from a historian named Lou Boyer. Quote, from the earliest civilizations of the Fertile Crescent throughout Greece and Rome, all the way to the early Christian church and the ancients afterward, everyone was accustomed to female priests who had not been in the least in an inferior position to male priests. Judaism did something nobody else did. Only one tribe and only the males in that tribe. That's two really unusual, unique things. Okay? All other tribes were discriminated against in a weird way, and that's what God chose to do. There's even a couple stories in the Bible about men outside of Levi attempting to exercise priestly ministry, and then God warning them, and when they didn't change, killing them. Okay? So that's important for us. When we say, well, why doesn't the church change it? First thing, just from authority's sense, the church says, well, we can't. It's not our priesthood. Kraft uses this image. We're the mail carrier, not the writer. We deliver the mail. We don't write it as Catholics. And this is why I think people, and I get it, especially basically only Americans and Europeans, kind of get frustrated with the church not changing things. But you have to remember, the church doesn't believe there's much she can change because it's not hers, right? It was given to her, not created by her. That which the church creates, she'll always change whenever it's needed. But that which the church didn't create but instead received, not so much. We won't change it because we don't think we can. And that's kind of important for us to remember, that as a Catholic, and you're going to laugh, but stick with me, I really mean this. For all of our arrogance as Catholics, and man, we do arrogance, we are good at this. We're very humble as a church in terms of what we think we can change. Not because of what we want, but because of what we believe we've received. If you give me something and say, Joey, hold on to this and take care of it, most of us wouldn't interpret that to mean change it and fix it so you like it, because it's not mine. I'm just holding on to it for you. So, then when you look at Jesus summoning 12 male apostles, that's unique. There were women following him. Scripture is clear. Women were the first people he appeared to at his resurrection. So why didn't he call them disciples or apostles? Why? You get what I'm saying? To think that Jesus did it because of and I've heard this before. Well, of course, he only called males. That's all society would have tolerated. Again, you're way off, no offense. That's what you've been told by really bad history teachers. But these guys had women judges, had women leaders. And again, only male apostles was weird. that was unusual. Okay? It would have been very unusual. And you gotta admit then, if you believe, well, no, Jesus only picked males because of culture, A, that wasn't the culture, but B, so Jesus was guilty of sexism? And what other cultural norm did he cave into? I can't think of any. He told people to eat his flesh. He told people such shocking and crazy stuff that they tried to kill him numerous times. Really think about that, right? Because we throw these things out, and I know we mean well, but I want to help us think about them a little bit. Well, Jesus only did it because society would... Wait, you're saying that for the first time in his life, Jesus was afraid of offending people? And that he chose, well, I'll go ahead and allow this sexist, horrible thing just because of the day and age? That doesn't sound like him. We're going to get to the rest in a minute. But it's basically very troublesome to accuse Christ of cooperating with sexism. Right? Can we all agree? There was and is a reason Jesus did what he did in choosing males. And I'm going to get into that in a moment. Yeah. Okay, sorry. What we're going to do... Yeah, I'm going to keep... Sorry. Yeah, all right. So why then? How are people doing? Okay, why do we believe that God created a uniquely male priesthood and that he maintains a uniquely male priesthood? For it to make sense, we have to look at the cornerstone of so much in our faith, namely this idea of sexual symbolism. And man, we're going to deep dive this right now. Okay? And it's hard. I told Carrie, I've been wanting to do this show for almost 2 years. It's just so hard. I'm not confident I can explain this well. Okay? And this is part of, to me, the blessing of Catholicism, although most times it feels like a curse. I can type, why doesn't the church ordain women? In about 5 seconds. I can answer it in 55 minutes at best. Why? Ours isn't a trite religion. It's a 2,000-year-old faith rooted in a 5,000-year-old faith. We really think things through. Seriously. And it's almost like walking up to a married guy or gal and saying, why do you love your spouse? And expecting that you can get an answer as short as your question. When we talk about sexual symbolism, this is a cornerstone of Catholic philosophy. Just like, remember, when we talked a lot about the human as a body-soul unity. And I have to say, more of you wrote me about that and found it transformative to your thinking than about anything I've ever said. And yet it's a cornerstone that you weren't taught. Why were you not taught about sexual symbolism? Why were you not taught about the body-soul unity? A human is a body-soul unity. For a real simple reason. The church still thinks she's catechizing Christians. And she's not. We in the U.S. are in a post-Christian society. And so I was educated, I think I might have been the first or second generation, people around my age, who were taught by priests who were flirting with new ideas, were moderately well rooted in the old ideas, in the what I would consider the proper ones. And so when we were taught, a lot was assumed that we didn't know. So for you and I hope what we hear in this next section on sexual symbolism, I hope I can help you see this is a key to a lot of our teaching on marriage, on homosexuality, on married priests, on women priests, and on the very purpose of our sexual energy, and the very purpose of male-female, as two distinct creatures who complement each other. Okay? Not compete, but complement. All right. Now, here's all that intro. I hope I do it well. We're going to dive into this. So the first thing we learn about sex from God is like a few verses in. And what do we learn? That God made it, not us. Humans did not design sex. And the second thing we learn about sex is that it's very good. Okay? Quote, be fruitful and multiply. That was God's command. Now, when we get into this phrase, sexual symbolism, you and I might be thinking of symbolism as modern Americans use it. But for us in Christian philosophy, and this is where I struggle, because Thomas Aquinas is brilliant and a lot of people love him, and I love him, but I have a hard time understanding him. Now, I understand this, but I have a tough time explaining it, okay? So, when we look at the idea of sexual, or at symbols, as we're going to use it, what we're talking about is this image. Crave put it this way. We believe that God writes history and nature as man writes words. So what you and I understand, what we believe, is that God is symbolized himself all through his creation, from the tiniest, lowest forms of life all the way up to the big, huge concepts, and everything in between. God teaches us something about himself. Everything is a symbol of God. Everything God made is a symbol of God. Yeah? Okay. That's huge, guys. Right? So even the dog, right? So my dog Marius, he doesn't have a conscience, right? He might have a kind of soul, okay? But he teaches us something about God. But he can't teach me as much about God as my dad can. Why? Because dad is more free than the dog. The dog's not free to be anything but a dog. The dog's not free to really act like anything other than a dog. Dad is free to not act like a human. Okay. So dad is a better model of God than the dog, but the dog's a good one. The dandelion is a beautiful symbol of God. It teaches us a lot about God, but not as good as the dog does. Right? That all through, how we doing? Our creation, God made it in such a way so that everything you and I look at can point us to God. And the bigger the thing, the more like God it is. And I don't mean bigger like mass. There are profound and unchangeable things in nature that then teach us about the profound and unchangeable nature of God. There's two ways to look at the world, in a sense, with a lot in between. One is in which everything means something. And that's the ancient worldview. Everything means something. That stone means something. And then there's the modern view in which nothing means anything. Okay? Nothing means anything. We can't even anymore, right? Who was it? The guy at Netflix. The CEO at Netflix is in trouble for saying, at core, that men can't get pregnant. Why? Nothing, everything means nothing. Nothing means anything anymore. That there's this ancient worldview that everything I see means something, and it's filled with wonder and awe. And there's this view now in which nothing means anything, and the fruit of it is angst. Now, for us who embrace the ancient view, everything in nature means something, and the big things in nature mean something big. And what's one of the biggest things of all? Sex. It's defining of us as humans in many ways. And you might say, well, you're a celibate. And the fact that you know that tells you how important it is. The fact that we think about it tells us how important it is. Yeah? Okay, great. And so about sex, what we believe is that it's so big that we'll never really take it apart and understand it totally. But that it is a massive fact of the human existence, not a clever human-made concoction. Okay. As an example, when a man and a woman come together physically, and there is no barrier between them, they can create an immortal soul. Wow. Now, excuse my crudeness. I don't intend this to be crude. When we reduce it to the feeling of an orgasm, we've missed something profound. But then when we take the feeling out of it, we've missed something profound. That sense of ecstasy in that moment is what you were created for. A moment that's so pure and so about the other that you're not aware of yourself. That's heaven. But to then separate that from its potential to create life, that's deadly. Yeah? Okay. So that's just an example, one tiny little example of how big sex is and how much it means to us and how much it reveals about God. And there's tons of others. Peter Kraft gives us a million of these little symbols that we recognize are universal, that whether you're in China or in the US, we all seem to have a few of the same rules, right? The sky makes us think of heaven. The dirt makes us think of earth. The eye seeing is a symbol for us understanding, right? What do we say? Oh, I see. But we don't mean that we see. We mean that we understand, right? These are universal symbols. We all know and recognize this unconsciously, and it plays out in our life. So again, Peter Kraft, I love this. He points out that ascending light notes in a major key inspire in every human hope and joy. That's just how it works. Whereas descending heavy notes in a minor key inevitably compel in us something grave. That's why movies do this. They don't make a soundtrack because you and I have one in life. They're trying to tell you what emotion to feel. Right? You can have a dude walking down a creepy hall and have the right, and what do you know? Something bad's gonna happen. Or you can have the dude creeping down the dark hall and hear do 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 do, and what do you know? This is really cool. The music isn't there to provide anything for you except this is what you're supposed to feel. Okay? This is symbols, right? This is what we mean by symbolism, and that the world is filled with them. So everything is connected for us, yeah? Everything means something for us, especially, and everything points to something beyond what it is for us, especially sex. Especially not just sex, but also gender. So, God, who deliberately designed sexuality, deliberately incarnated himself as a male. That's big. That's big, right? Now again, we're going to do that thing that Americans do. Well, that's because no one would have listened to a woman. You're wrong. Go read sources of the day. Women were considered great spiritual masters, often more so than men. In Judaism, women are considered more pure than men because they're the last thing God created. They're the closest thing to God on earth. Why? Because they can hold two souls in one body. Men can't. They can do what God does. Jesus Christ came as a male. Now, he still is a male. He has a male body in heaven. He didn't change genders when he ascended to heaven. He is forever and always a male. So that's important for us because what we're going to see and what you may remember is that at the high point of the Mass, after Jesus has transformed bread into his very flesh, I hold it in my hands and say what? This is my body. I don't mean mine. Because remember what we talked about when we talk about Mass? At that point in the Mass, I'm not reenacting the Last Supper. I'm not remembering the Last Supper. I am Christ at the Last Supper. The church says, quote, in persona Christi. That's a male body being given to us. This is my body. I'm not saying this is Joe Krupp's body, because there'd be a lot more of it. Did you find that funny? Yeah. This is the heart of it, right there. The assumption, and it's even more than assumption, the concrete belief we have, that God's coming to earth as a male was intentional, that it means something. and that his gender means something. And then that means I have to be a male to do what he did in his place at the Last Supper. Okay. Now we're going to get into this next point, and I'm going to say the statement, and some of you might be like, what? Stick with me, okay? Stick with me. The second reason that Christ became male is because he's the perfect image of God the Father. And God is Father. Okay? That's important to us, okay? So why is Christ's maleness important? Because he's the revelation of the Father, and the Father's masculinity is essential. Now, to understand this, we have to separate male from masculine. Male and female are biological genders. Masculine and feminine are universal cosmic principles that, again, start right down at the level of atoms and go all the way up into the soul. And every pre-modern civilization got this, that I know of. English is the only language that doesn't gender our nouns. Okay? You remember if you learned Spanish, you remember if you learned Latin, there's male nouns and female nouns. And what's really fascinating is how they all line up. Whether you're, again, learning Chinese, whether you're learning Swahili, or whether you're learning Gaelic, or whether you're learning Spanish. Right? The same female nouns all through, the same male nouns all through, with some exceptions. Like, I do believe the Germans are the only people to call their country the fatherland. I believe that's true. And they don't anymore, by the way. That was too tied to Nazism for them. So most cultures saw a cosmic sexuality universally expressed in like sun, day, land, night, right? Sky, moon, night, sea, darkness. And how do they break down? Sun, day, land, and light, and sky as male. Moon, night, sea, darkness, and earth as female. And if you've been to a Hindu wedding ceremony, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Where the groom says to the bride, "You are earth, and I am heaven." And what does she say back? "You are heaven, I am earth." That they believe heaven and earth join in them. Okay? So, again, you know, if we want to say, well, that's just projection. Okay, but everybody did it. That's pretty incredible. Now, once we look, we find a ton of evidence from the bottom to the top, right? From the electromagnetic attraction between electrons and protons all the way up to the Trinity. This idea of cosmic female and cosmic male, and the male's hunting and initiating, and the female is receiving. So God, for us, we believe is masculine to everything, down from the atoms up to the angels. Atoms to angels. Let's write a book. Now, this is why priests have to be male as well. Are we making sense? Are we rolling here? Okay. So, God's chosen people are the Jews. This is who God revealed himself to. And if we look, there's 5 ways that God revealed himself to the Jews that are completely unique in all of world history. That when we look at every other religion, there are 5 traits to Judaism that are completely unique. Or if you do Latin, these, okay. First, the Jews worship no goddesses, no bisexual or hermaphroditic gods, none. Their only God always was he, never she. And again, a vast majority of the gods around them were female. A vast majority. Male gods were the rarity. The second thing, the Jews had no priestesses, the only religion that did that. Third, the Jewish God, and this is huge, was utterly transcendent to the universe. He created everything out of nothing. You will not find another creation story where that's true. And the implications of that, by the way, we could talk about forever. Okay? This is so important that there's a word in Hebrew. This will blow you away. Again, this is all Kraft, Lewis, and Hildebrand. There's even a word in Hebrew that is present in no other ancient language. The word bara, to create. Okay, why? Only God can do it, not man. God was not part of the universe, like polytheist believes. He's not the whole of the universe, like pantheist believes. He created the universe ex nihilo, out of nothing. He is above it and created it. And it's the only faith that taught that. Okay? What is a fourth marker of this God of Judaism that isn't present in any other? That he spoke intentionally. That he revealed himself in prophetic words and miraculous deeds. He didn't have to be found, he found you. Okay? You don't stumble on him, he hunts you. Okay? All other religions are man's search for God. Judaism, Christianity is God hunting for man. I will find you. Right? He's the Liam Neeson of the spirit world. I will find you. Religious experience for the Jews was never initiative. It was always response. It's not, I do these incantations and Zeus comes forth. It was God calls and I respond. This is big for us, right? There was no yoga method, no way to manipulate God or push his button. God initiates, we respond. And fifth, and finally, and all these are so important, the law is the primary link with God. God not only revealed himself to us, he wanted us to know him and to know what we do or don't do to make him happy. Okay. What's so unique here, Judaism was the first and for a long time the only, until Christianity, that linked religiosity with morals. Right? You've heard me talk about the Roman Empire. They were butchers and they were devoutly religious. But what did religious mean? They worked with the gods. They asked the gods to do things for them. They offered sacrifices. But what did they never do? Believe those sacrifices meant they had to do anything except the sacrifices. In Judaism, you have a God who says, well, if you love me, you'll do what I say. If you love me, you'll act a certain way. Or as Jesus says, if you love me, you'll keep my commandments. And then my Father will love you and come and dwell inside of you. The God of pantheism might have a consciousness but not a will. The God of polytheism have conflicting wills. They always fight with each other, and humans are just the meat in the middle. Only in Judaism is there a full union of religion and morality. So you can do all the sacrifices in Judaism and be a horrible person because you're not doing what God said to do. In polytheism and pantheism, you simply do the sacrifices. But there's no morality here. Okay. That's how the Romans could butcher the world and be deeply religious people. How are we doing? Okay, these 5 really unique features, completely unique features of Judaism are connected now. And now it all comes together. Remember this masculine and feminine spirit in the cosmos? Well, what do humans do? A man enters a woman's body from outside of her, yeah? And creates a universe inside of her together. God calls to the man and reveals himself to man from outside of him. This is the male-female. This is sex. This is the symbol. What's it all a symbol of? Those 5 things that we just said. They all play out in the male-female dynamic, in the sexual dynamic. God is not, I love this is Kraft. God is not the force, but the face. He's not the earth spirit rising, but heavenly Father descending. To speak of religion as man's search to God is like speaking of the mouse's search for the cat. God is the hunter, the male, the chaser. What are we humans? The bride, the receiver, the hider. Read Song of Songs. Why do you think that's in the Bible? Why would they put love poetry in the Bible? Because over and over, what's the image? This man who's just hunting everywhere for his bride. And what is she doing? Hiding from him. She's afraid of his passion. This isn't a rape. God, I don't know how to say that well. But more like she's overwhelmed with how much he wants her. And he's overwhelmed. And so he's hunting her down. And she's hiding, but not really hiding. Because she's his bride. Yeah? Isn't this amazing? This concept is so key to us. It's why whenever you're at Mass, how does the church over and over refer to herself? Her. That's where we get to the second side of the equation, okay? That if we see the masculinity of God, then we have to look at the femininity of the church. The church is God's bride. And that is, again, a totally, completely unique element to Christianity. So we have these 5 unique elements of Judaism, and what did we do as Christians? Well, we stole them. It's what we do, right? That's our mom and dad. Jews are our spiritual mom and dad. Well, technically, I guess our dad. No, technically our mom. Yeah. Anyway, so we took that, and what did we say? We are bride. And look all through Revelations, look all through John, and that is the primary expression of heaven, the wedding feast of the Lamb. That the church has always, there's never been a point in her history where she's thought of herself as anything other than female. Okay? In this religion, our soul is impregnated by God. We play that out in baptism. The waters of the baptismal font are the womb of Holy Mother Church. And if you've been to the Good Friday service, or the Easter Vigil service, you've seen this. And maybe you caught it, maybe you didn't. But we pray that God fertilize the womb of the church while the deacon is plunging this candle in the water. It's not a subtle symbol. This is why God must always be he to us, not she. Religion is inherently heterosexual, and therefore it makes babies. Yeah? Okay. Our new birth, our salvation, comes from above us, from outside of us. It's a transcendence. We don't impregnate ourselves spiritually with salvation or divine life any more than anyone can physically impregnate themselves. God made the Jews different. And I love this is Kraft, and was extremely ornery and cantankerous about them remaining different, even to the extent of demanding the wholesale slaughter of pagans who tried to lead them away from this pure focus of, you're the bride, I'm the groom. And this is again Kraft, I'm sorry. If God did not invent the Jews invented God. And in that case, let's be honest and cease to be Christians or even theists, because it's much too hard. So I hope I've got you there. And if not, I totally understand. This is a lot of trying to think and distill. What I want us to see in the end is that when we, sorry, I keep dropping my mic. It's my fault from my new cassock. When we talk about these things, oh, look, I can put it in my little breast pocket, but then you can see the cord. Okay, when we talk about these things, what we want to remember is that as Christians, we look at the world and we try to take the ancient worldview. Everything means something, and everything that God created teaches us about God. And so when we look at sex, when we look at male, female, we believe we're looking at the 2 things on earth that probably have the most to teach us about God. They're the biggest symbols of God in our life. And when we look at them, what we learn, we match with what's unique about Judaism. And from that, we emerge with this image. We are female. Right? We are female. The church is feminine. She is bride. And I think this is why men naturally sometimes struggle with church. Right? Because what do women always tell me? You have to give my husband something to do. okay? Which I'm not objecting to. But do you get how antithetical that is to Christianity? That our doing is supposed to be an expression of our receiving, not the other way around. And that's why I think it's tough for men. Okay, whoops, sorry. That's my cousin. Becky, I love you. That's my cousin, Becky. I love you, Beck. Beck's dad, my Uncle Ray, went to be with the Lord last week, I think was his anniversary. And if we could all say a prayer for Becky, I can't tell you how much I love that chick. Okay, even though she beats me and calls me bad names. Okay, I'm going to be totally honest. She doesn't beat me and call me bad names. She hugs me and gives me cookies. But be this as it may, we look at Judaism and we see these 5 completely unique elements to Judaism and how they match up with human sexuality, and we walk away with an understanding that a God who came to earth as a male is telling us, I am masculine, you are feminine. And I get it, right? In our American modern culture, how hard this can be for us to process because we think in terms of egalitarianism. And I want to be clear, that's a good thing. But let me try, because Craif does this, I think, really well. He says, there's a lot about this that can sound chauvinistic. So he says, let me help you with that, right? He says, the first thing is that the claim, well, this is how he says it, okay? The first and most obvious of which is her claim, the church, that Judeo-Christian tradition claims that God is male. God is masculine, not male. Women, as much as men, represent the image of God. Look at Genesis 5, okay? But at the heart of the divine revelation is the simple fact that the first person of the Trinity chose to reveal himself as Father. Now that transcends human biology, male and female, and it's more into the image of fatherhood. And you might say, well, I had a terrible father. This is where God can heal, because he's a good father. Okay? So we're not saying, and again, I don't know how to say this, that God has a penis, right? God is spirit. And we're not saying God is male, but we are saying that that cosmic principle of masculinity is God. Okay? In order for a person, well, we could get into that. I don't know how to explain this part well. Again, this is where I get stuck. The second thing for us to look at in terms of this image of God as masculine and us as feminine is that it makes us feminine. That's the key for us, that the image of the church is feminine. Okay? That the image of the Father is masculine, the image of his bride, the church, is feminine. And again, I think that's one of the key reasons men struggle. I think. I don't know. But it seems to me women always outnumber men in church. Now here's a crazy thing, and I believe I'm right on this. I really do. I can't tell you how many men who are veterans of AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, are faithful church people. Because what have they learned? Dependence. They've learned dependence, the thing that's a little tougher for men to learn, that it's okay to need help, that it's required to need help, that receiving is the gift. Okay. So again, this is my best effort, and I got more, but I think I need to stop and walk us through a couple other principles. What we want to remember is that when the church says women cannot be ordained priests, it should not be about sexism. For some priests, bishops, popes, it might be. I don't know. But it is more in line with a consistent, ancient understanding that we believe came from God. God revealed himself in this way. At a time when God didn't need to. God could have revealed himself as female. And I promise you, look it up, people would have made more sense of that. So that's what we've got. Now, the bigger issue, this has to do with the sacrament right? The Eucharist, the priest at the Last Supper, standing in persona Christi. Where I think our sisters get hurt is that as a church, we've decided that that means I'm in charge. The fact that I am able to pray Mass and can be the means by which God changes bread to his flesh and wine to his blood, the way it plays out right now, I also have power. And as I've shared, I believe, way too many times, that's to me why priests get in trouble. That the very mystery we celebrate goes against the mentality that says, I want to lead. I do believe I need to lead. I believe I need to lead morally and theologically. But I think the fact that we've tied that into personnel, to business, and even to, the color of the carpet is where the problem lies. And I think one of the things we have to look at is this. So I have beautiful people around me who then try to spread the power out. They work with me so that I'm not exercising too much power. And I think they'll tell you I do that. Carrie's nodding. Okay. Well, we get into trouble in two ways. God's people prefer dictators. They would never say that, but that's the preference. And then, when people exercise power in my name, people treat them like crap. So if you want to help, the best way to do so is to cooperate, in this process that I'm trying to do, and I've explained it over and over in the bulletin, and I still hit these brick walls once in a while, or if I don't hear it from Father Joe, or God help them if it's a woman who has to communicate to them what I'm saying. That's the problem. Do you see what I mean? You have to let the priest be healthy, even though it's easier if you don't. Easier for you. I've shared this. I've gone into many situations to clean up things. And it's pretty rare that the priest started as a bad dude. He got overwhelmed and collapsed morally or spiritually, or he got a little too used to the power and just couldn't figure out how to live if he wasn't calling all the shots. This is the issue. And for me as a church, and we're trying on this level, but it's got to shoot up the food chain that women's voices are heard. And not in a patronizing way, not in a quota way, but because that's where God is, in the complementarianism of male and female. Is this how we doing? Okay. So we pray for these things, and we act toward them. And I want to say this, and again, I know people have told me, I know some of you think I'm kissing his butt, but this is where I appreciate Bishop Earl. That more than any bishop I've ever worked with, he's brought women in. And you heard me say with Deb Amato, it changed our diocese fundamentally. Having beautiful people like Lisa Kudus, Deb Amato, I could go through. And why? Because a bunch of men sitting around and, grunting man code to each other only gives us half of the image of God. We need both. And if God is running this church, then we need men and women running this church. So the fact that it gets all tied into priesthood is a failure on the church's part. It's not a failure of vision for our sisters who want to be priests. It's a failure of us priests who are all about power and who have way too much of it. So that's my thoughts on this topic, and I pray I explain this well. If you want to hear, again, my trouble with, if you want, you can just go listen to Dr. Craif's lecture. The problem I have with it is that he's clearly giving it at a conference, and it's filled with people cheering at weird things, if you ask me. And he uses the word feminism a little looser than I would. Okay. It does look like we have questions. Should I try to, how are we doing?
You can see if you have.
Okay, I'll see if I have time.
Otherwise,
Oh,
we'll
wow.
do it on Friday. There's a lot of questions.
Yeah, oh, wow. Praise the Lord. Okay, is it,
Some of them are deep.
Oh, okay, all right.
Yeah, that first one might be deep.
First one, is it oversimplifying the answer that by saying that because God was male, priests should be male, because during Mass, priests are personifying Christ? Yeah, that's it, right? And obviously, there's a lot to unpack there. And because God chose to come as male. So yeah, that honestly, I wish you would have told me that before the show.
It would have been 5 minutes.
Yeah. Can you speak to the role that women so strongly affect a calling to the priesthood? I don't know what that means.
It keeps going.
The role of every BVM to every...
Blessed Virgin Mary.
I'm so stupid. Okay, can you speak to the role that women so strongly affect a calling to the priesthood? Mom's sister. Okay, got you. Yeah, the role of our Blessed Mother to priest tends to be pretty important. Now, I'm going to be candid. It's interesting. There was a discussion on the internet that led to me getting some really cool letters. In a way I hadn't thought of the issue. You know, what is it? I believe it's 85% of church employees are female, right? And so I found myself in a spot where I was sending messages asking, can you tell me, and one of the things they said is they've learned, like one gal, she's been working at the church 20 years, she said, I've learned when a priest comes in and the first thing he talks about is how much he loves Mary, I know he's going to treat me like crap. That the love for Mary part becomes a camouflage for, those cute little women, pat them on the head. I was shocked. It broke my heart to hear that. And I asked Carrie to never write it again. So yeah, we should love our mom, and we should see our mom in the women we serve with. That's the key. It can't just be this ethereal out there mom that we love and honor. It has to be looking at Carrie, looking at my sisters, looking at my mom, and seeing in them God bearers. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Father Joe, here's your acronym for HOPE. Oh, nice. Holding on to patience, eagerly waiting for the coming of Jesus. You know I'm never going to remember that. Do you remember that I need small words? Like, right, something like that. I could do that. Can you remember that for me, Carrie?
I will.
Okay.
I will.
Will you also be talking about ordaining women as deacons? No, I don't have any wisdom or learning on this. I've read people who are like, clearly the church had early deacons and clearly the early church didn't, and I can't figure out what to make of it. I'm sorry. I'll just wait till Rome says and nod my head and smile. Not buying it. Well, I ain't selling it. Women had very few rights back then. Sounds like justification for tradition. Yeah, I can't help that that's what you think. I can't. I get it. Did Jesus specifically say women couldn't be priests where and when? Well, sure. He had a ton of followers. He appeared to women first, yet there was only men at the Last Supper where he instituted the Eucharist. That's pretty big. There should have been women there, but it's specifically the fact that they aren't. That's kind of a big deal to us. And again, remember, that was counterintuitive to the times. Was there significance in the encounter with the women of Jerusalem during the Passion? He had so many women who followed him. I know, that's what's awesome, right? Is there was clearly a delineation back then. And to tell you how far our human view has shifted, I want you to think about what it means, for good or bad, because I don't know. I think about it all the time. That it's just in the last 60 years of our 2,000-year-old church that you'll find anything about people writing about women priests. Anything. We were appointing women to run hospitals and schools and priories. But we all knew the philosophy. And I know that sounds funny, but that's Crave's thing. The farther and farther we get from the ancient thing, where signs mean something or they don't, the farther we get from being able to intuitively even grasp this. Women had no weight. They were second-class citizens. I feel like Jesus elevated women's status. Maybe Old Testament women were amazing. Yeah, Jews were much more formed by Greek culture by the time Jesus popped in, and women had lost a ton of rights that they had previously had. Read Leviticus. And again, life was harder if you were a woman. Let's make no mistake here. I'm not, oh my gosh. But what I want to come, Holy Spirit. What I want to propose is that somewhere between women had the worst life ever and were treated like crap, and women were just elevated and everything was wonderful. In the middle of there is where it is. Right? Did I answer that question? I can't remember.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, yeah, because these women were amazing, guys. Did you get that Jesus' whole mission was funded by women? I mean, that's hilarious. And that's cool.
Yeah.
And women did have wealth back then. Women could have wealth. It flat out says which women sold what to get Jesus' money. Isn't that funny? Yeah.
That's the end of it.
Okay, got you. Question, wait, what?
That was the last one.
Oh, wow. Hey, okay. So I thank you guys for tuning in. And you don't have to agree with me. I hope you never get the idea that I need you to agree with me. I love you. You love me. We're fighting the best we can to find out what's true and to live it well. A universal principle to think of is this. Ideologies do not judge the church. The church judges ideologies. And that's a key for us. That's really a key for us. Because ideologies constantly are in flux. And I could give a million examples of today, but YouTube would remove our video. I'm pretty sure they're going to take this one down. I thought about it as I was giving it. I was like, boy, I say gender, and I say all these ideas. And if they do take it down, then I'll just do it again, but we'll say tree and, I'm just kidding, car. Yeah. So, okay, I think this one was hard, and I hope it was helpful. If it's not, it's Carrie's fault. If you listen to it and you're like, this makes total sense, that was me. But if you want to do a good follow-up read C.S. Lewis's writing, Priestesses in the Church, ? Okay, that was when the Anglicans were still wrestling with that question. And we'll get after it. So tomorrow, Rich Bud's here, and I think you're really going to enjoy that conversation. He has his own podcast, or he used to. I don't know if he still does. It's fantastic. What was it called? Armchair Catholic. And I'm going to cough. And we'll talk about his ministry, which is wonderful and elevating. And then on Friday, we'll do some questions and answers. So you guys, I'm so grateful. I read your comments, and I know I can't respond to all of them, and I promise I try so hard, but you are so supportive and so kind and so generous, and I'm grateful. I hope you found today helpful, and just thank you. Okay? I guess that's it for today, so let's say a prayer. Okay. Whew. Heavenly Father, as your bride, we say thank you for entering us and filling us with your life. We ask for the grace to love you as you are and to let ourselves be loved as we are. And we ask, Lord, that you show us a little more deeply today how far the mercy goes, so that we can be confident as we stumbled forward toward you. We ask in a special way today for you to bless all Passionists priests on the feast day of their founder, St. Paul of the Cross. We thank you for their ministry, and today in a special way we ask you to be with those who mourn, those who are struggling with loss. For all of the people that we worry about, for all of the situations that we fret about, oh Lord, we give them to you now. And we love you, and we trust you. May Almighty God bless all of you, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. The force is strong in you. I don't know, that seemed funny to me. Take care, I'll see you next day, tomorrow. I can't even talk. Is it over?
No, it's never over.